Welcome, everybody, to another edition of This Week in Legal Blogging, presented by LexBlog. I am Bob Ambrogi, and I am the author of my own blog, Law Sites, and I also host a legal podcast called Law Next. This is number 8 in our series of interviews with legal bloggers. We had a great interview last week with Angelo Paparelli, and next week, we're going to be back with Jeff Nowak, author of FMLA Insights. You can find all of these on youtube.com/LexBlog. And today, I am very happy to have the author of the blog, The Social Media Butterfly, Stefanie Marrone. Stefanie, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Bob. And I wonder, is this the very first time that you've also had a special dog guest? Because I mentioned I have a very high maintenance puppy who's sitting on my lap right now.
I'm not sure this is the first dog guest we've had. We've had various cameos from pets and other family members, I think. But yeah, introduce your special dog guest.
So those of you who follow my blog know that my beloved French bulldog Charlie passed away in June, and I simply cannot be without a dog, specifically a Frenchie. They are the most ridiculously funny and amazing dogs in the world. So this is Lucy, everyone. She's sleeping. She's not happy that I just woke her up. But so everyone meet Lucy. She is definitely keeping me busy, and she demands to sit on my lap when she's not demanding that I play with her. So I essentially work to finance her extravagant lifestyle, Bob.
Well, that's good. And I'm sure, Lucy, you're in New York, right?
I am.
Are you able to get out with Lucy and take Lucy out?
And if you should hear a siren, I mean, I have all my windows shut, but that's just Manhattan. It happened to me. Also, last week, there was some crazy tropical storm, and I was giving a presentation to 50 lawyers during the exact time of that storm. And my window blew open, a painting fell down, and I just kept going, because because that's what you just do, right?
Yeah.
I've been able to escape the city. Luckily, I have family and friends in New Jersey and Connecticut, so it's been nice to have some fresh air. But I'm still a believer in New York, and I'm a lifelong New Yorker, so I'm not giving up on this place. And it's gotten better. COVID is under control, knock on wood here. Right. People are very serious about mask wearing and adhering to all of the rules, but I live in a 25-story building. There are a lot of people everywhere. I'm shocked we're able to keep it where it is, and thankful that people are very responsible.
Yeah, that's great. I miss New York. I don't think I've been to New York. Well, I have not been to New York since Legal Week. I think that was the last time. What was that, January, February?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gone this long without getting to New York at some point. So it's killing me. I love it.
The whole conference circuit, it's such an extraordinary year,
right.
It's everything. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's August also.
The Legal Marketing Association was kind of the last holdout. They still seemed to be holding out hope that they were going to have an in-person conference until finally throwing in the towel recently.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Yeah. So Stefanie, for the one person watching this who doesn't know who you are and what you do, let's start there. Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So I've been in legal marketing for about 20 years. This isn't what I set out originally to do. I wanted to be a magazine editor, Bob, and that's what I did for 3 years out of college. I worked at Redbook Magazine, and I wrote a health column and a marriage column. I knew nothing about either of those subjects. I also wrote the horoscopes, Bob, and I am not an astrologer. So this should make people a little bit
great training for blogging is writing about stuff you don't know anything about.
I think it's going to be a lucky month for you, actually, and that money is headed your way. So I always wanted to be a writer. I went to NYU I was a history and art history major, and my dad would say all the time, why are we paying for you to major in history? And I was like, well, these are great liberal arts skills, Dad, I can take with me into the future. And so I loved it. And I loved being a writer at Redbook, but it was a lot of like grunt work, and it was a lot of mean girl stuff. And I lasted 3 years. I made no money whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
And at night, so during college and at night, I moonlit at a private equity fund because again, I barely could make my rent working at a magazine. And their private equity fund paid a lot of money for a nighttime receptionist. Okay. So they were using Paul Weiss as their lawyers. And eventually Paul Weiss was looking for an in-house writer editor and someone to start their alumni relations program. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And then they told me the salary and I was like, oh, okay, I'll do this for like a year. And fast forward 5.5 years later, I loved it. And I met my mentor there, who was the CMO, who then took me with her to another firm and then another firm and another firm. And I went up working for her at 4 different firms and I loved it. So I went on.
Who was that? Can I ask?
Yeah, her name is Wendy Bernero and she's now the global CMO at Baker McKenzie. And so I worked with her also at a little firm called McKee Nelson, which then went under during the financial crisis. She helped me get a job at Sullivan and Cromwell, and I ran their communications for 3 years, which is like 10 years in Sullivan and Cromwell years. I went to Mayer Brown thinking I wanted to work for a global firm, and I didn't. I went to MoFo. Then I went to Proskauer and to work for Wendy again. And then Wendy and Eric Press started their own consulting firm, and I went to work for them.
Yeah.
And soon after, I wound up getting this great opportunity to go to a mid-sized firm and be their head of marketing. And I did that for 3.5 years, and I loved it. And then last year, just decided my life was shaken up in a lot of ways and decided I needed to shake it up and decided to start my own business. And so I started the blog. We can talk about the blog later, but while I was working at Charter Krinsky, and now I'm consultant to law firms and also serve as CMO to a couple of small law firms that don't have necessarily the budget or the need for someone full time. And then I also manage all the content social for a number of firms of all sizes.
So like an outsourced CMO is what you do for law firms?
Yeah, yes. And then also not just for law firms. I work for an accounting firm. I work for a major shoe company also. Oh. And then individuals and help manage all their like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, everything as well. Yeah. I was nervous in the beginning of the pandemic thinking like, oh gosh, this is not a good time to have my own business. But when everyone realized that social was going to be the primary way in which we were going to communicate, luckily I've been pretty busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have a lot of degrees of connections. And in that story you just told, I know a lot of the people that you've worked with, and Eric Press and I worked together at ALM many years ago, way back when. And he's one of the greatest people in the world to work with and to know personally as well.
Yeah,
so
yes, I agree.
So let's talk about your blog a little bit. So here, my first question may seem unusual, but I love the name of your blog, the Social Media Butterfly, and I wondered, did it just like come to you, or did you put a lot of work and effort into coming up with the right name for your blog?
Okay, so the name is interesting. So Kevin O'Keefe, who I guess runs Lex Blog, had approached me.
We all guess he runs like, we're not sure, but we think
so. So Kevin had approached me and said, Steph, I want you to have a blog. And I said, oh, whatever. I don't have anything to say. He's like, yes, you do. And I was like, okay. He's like, we have to come up with a name for it. Tossing out names and whatever, came up with a couple of ideas. And then this one was like, I was like, I have the greatest idea. And he was like, what is it? And I was like, the social. And then I put in parentheses, media butterfly. And he was like, that's it. And I was like, yes, it is. So it was sort of like a collaboration because we had come up with a few other names. I was nervous that it was going to pigeonhole me into just being a social media person. And a lot of people think of me that way, but I couldn't not take it because I am very social, very outgoing, and then I do social, so it really is the right name for a blog for me.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Were alcoholic beverages involved in this process, or was this
no,
just purely...
they weren't. But you know what's funny? Like I wish I had it. It's somewhere in my kitchen. Somebody sent me, I forgot who it was, someone in the legal marketing industry when it launched. They sent me a wine glass that said Social Butterfly on it. Congratulations on the launch of your blog, which I thought was so nice.
Yeah, that's nice. So this is jumping off. Well, it's not jumping off a little bit. Just given what you just described, do you think when you're counseling legal professionals or professionals anywhere else about blogs, about social media, do you think the name of the blog matters much?
Yeah, I do. I mean, so I have worked at many law firms and that had multiple blogs, and sometimes I feel like they go too generic, and sometimes I feel like they go too niche-y and too like inside baseball, right? Like, you know, I can't tell you how many lawyers have tried to use like movie titles or like Game of Thrones references, even when they're writing a blog, but like they try to get too cute almost.
Right.
And then they'll also try to buy like the name of like, and I don't think this is necessarily a good thing, or maybe it is, but like a general term like healthcarelaw.com. Like, okay, maybe that's good for search results, but you know, it's very broad. So yeah. I think it does matter. I mean, I think that you want to resonate with people. You want to find a balance between the two, like something that is appealing to a lot of people, but also is unique. So I think there's a happy medium between the two. So I think a name has to be something you really well thought out and plan, and you go through a number of names. I've done this so many times, and I've been vetoed too. I mean, at the end of the day, a lawyer will likely have final say.
Yeah. So other than Kevin telling you really ought to have a blog, what were your goals personally? Why did you start a blog? What did you hope to do with it or achieve with it?
Well, I was writing a lot of content, and being a writer, like, you know, again, being a magazine editor and like writing, I was publishing a lot for JD Supra. I had published a lot, New York Law Journal. I was putting a lot of stuff also on LinkedIn Publisher and then posts, and they were sort of all over the place, right? So Kevin would see my posts and he would say, this is such good stuff, but like they're all over the place. You need one place where people can find everything, and then you can repurpose from there. So and he said, I think you're going to have a following if you have it in one place. And then also, obviously, from like a search engine optimization perspective, I wanted people to be able to find me easily as well. The blog actually turned into what is now my website. At some point, I'll probably need to have my own website, but I've been using it for both. So that's been great. And actually, Bob, I don't know if you know this, but I've gotten clients from the blog. So from just writing, people seeing it, people hearing about it, reading an article, which has been terrific. Somebody saying, or Googling me and checking it out and saying, okay, she knows her stuff. So I don't know that I would be any better of a spokesperson for why you should have a blog, of the fact that, obviously I need to sell myself at some point and like sound reputable, but the blog has been a great way for me to get my foot in the door, to show that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Did that surprise you, or were you expecting that would happen?
No, it didn't surprise me. It confirmed again that thought leadership and having opinions and writing about substantive things does really make a difference, and the importance of content in terms of leading to new business. Like, I've been telling lawyers this for years, right, but I can now say that this actually works in a different industry, tangentially related, but lawyers hire me based on what I'm writing. So I can't see why a buyer of legal services wouldn't hire a lawyer based on what they're writing about. So I will tell you, I've never seen content for lawyers lead to new business or new business opportunities or a CLE opportunity or something more than I have in the last couple of years as well.
Yeah, it's been really interesting doing this series because we all talk about the idea that blogs can lead to business for lawyers. Certainly, Kevin talks about it all the time, and I talk about it too, and I believe it. But as I say, you're number 8. The first 7 guests were all lawyers with blogs who all swore by the fact that it did wonders for their business in terms of bringing in business for them. It's been really amazing to hear their stories of getting business through their blog. But I want to ask you, because you are still publishing in various other places. You're on JD Supra a lot, and I don't know whether you're just taking the stuff that's already on your blog and putting it on JD Supra, or if that's separate and different content. How do you, in your own mind, balance the various media in which you publish, and how do you coordinate what you're going to put where?
Yeah, so just like I would do for a lawyer or a law firm, I have an editorial calendar for myself. And so I tend to publish a lot more frequently on my blog and a lot, I guess, shorter content. So I publish maybe once a day on the blog. Obviously a best practice is to publish once a week, and you shouldn't commit to a blog if you're not really going to do it on a regular basis. I will flesh out a story and then go into more depth in a JD Supra article. I will usually give JD Supra the article first if it's a longer article, and let them publish it, and then I'll repurpose it on my blog. But I keep track of all of this. And then obviously the ones that I give to, like the New York Law Journal or Law 360, I will then give a snippet on my blog later on and say, read the full article there, because it's always good. It is good to have your stuff published in different places, so that, because again, like, you can't predict how people will find you. Different strokes for different folks, right? Just like people might like a Facebook Live, they might like a podcast better, or they might like to read something. So I think it's good to, sort of penetrate the market in different places in different ways. So sometimes I'll also take a snippet of a longer form article and then do a blog post drilling down on something. So I'm a firm believer of reuse and repurpose, and then publish often and repurpose something. So you can certainly take something and expand upon it. So again, the calendar really helps me do that, and I manage and track all of my posts. And every lawyer, everybody with a blog should also be doing that. And even if you don't have a blog, anybody who produces content should be doing this. And I also have a separate tab for LinkedIn posts as well, because I also do like a tip of a day or something like that, which are short form posts as well.
Yeah, and you're doing video as well.
Yeah, I dabbled in video a little bit. I need to go back into that. And again, it was something done like just right on my phone, and I did an overlay using Canva. But yeah, you know what? My videos actually did really well, because I think people and that was during like the height of COVID. I think people wanted human connection. But I think, you have to try a bunch of different things, because your audience, it just depends. And I actually try out different times of day to post content as well, because, and everything we knew before COVID, I will tell you, like, throw it out the window, because there is no bad time to post right now, because people are on social, people are everywhere. And I will also say that, I am a huge proponent of LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, everything. But the best way to reach people is email. So Let's Blog enables me to also have this e-newsletter every day where people subscribe to my blog, and they get a digest. That has been terrific to me, to see that people actually want to hear what I have to say every day. And I still believe in the power of email as the best way to reach people directly.
Yeah. That actually raises it. Well, a couple of points there. One is on the when to post. It's interesting you say there is no right or wrong time now.
There's but there's the better time to post, which I can tell
which
you.
Which is what?
Which is still traditional commuting hours in your time zone. So from 7 to 10 in the morning, and then lunchtime, and then 4 to 8 p.m. Because people who used to commute now aren't commuting, but they still have downtime, eating breakfast, lunch, dinner. So they're still a captive audience. People are sitting on their couches at night and they want, to connect, etc. The weekend is actually really good because, again, first of all, people don't know what day of the week it is. I know I don't sometimes. I get up on a Sunday and I'm like, I have a meeting at 9:30, and then I'm like, no, I don't, because it's not Sunday, right? So I'm finding my posts on the weekends actually do really well. Saturday better than Sunday. So I guess, Bob, what I mean is there's no really bad day anymore, but there's better times. I never post anything on a Friday afternoon, especially during the summer, and Monday mornings are really crappy. So don't post Monday morning.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing similar hits on my blog. It used to be that I would try and post something first thing in the morning, and I still generally post every morning. But I've gotten a little bit later. It's seeming to me that if I post too early, I'm just not getting. People are not getting up early anymore, I feel like. And then, like you say, Friday afternoon or something. But what surprised me is I can post something in the evening, which I usually would never have done, and I'll get a lot of pickup on it. Or, like you said, the weekend, and I'll get a lot of pickup on something that I post on the weekend when that never would have happened before.
Yeah. By the way, people aren't going out as much at night. They're home. And so that's part of it, right? Because we have a captive audience for content, which is a blessing for all of us who are trying to engage with audiences.
Yeah. So you talked about your new puppy, and I knew about your new puppy because I was reading your blog, and I had read that you had a stomach bug this week. You've written about some very personal things on your blog.
Yeah.
And I wonder how you draw that line, how you decide what's right to write about, what's maybe not right to write about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've struggled with what's wrong, where to draw the line. I'm a pretty open person. I had a really tough personal year, and sometimes I will talk about it, but in the context of motivational kinds of things and moving forward and showing that, I just think so much of social media happens to be like people posting photos of their amazing life, and not everything's so amazing. So somebody had actually sent me a note, which I love getting these notes through Lex blog, saying, I think I posted something about like how to not be, it was about your inner critic and like how to stop your inner critic from really wreaking havoc on you. And that's where I mentioned I had a stomach virus. It
was a great post. It was a really good.
Yeah, thank you. And the woman who wrote to me said, I really needed to hear this. And she's a successful lawyer, by the way, at a very prominent firm. And I had no idea she was following my blog. And she said, I needed to hear this. It's really nice how real you are. And so, listen, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. You will not be everyone's cup of tea. I'm not a lawyer. I have, master's degree. Like, I am as real as you can get. But I know my stuff. And I also, I might not resonate with you, and that's okay. Kevin always said to me, I should be myself. I think that especially since COVID, like, we are being more authentic, more genuine. I was this way prior to this. I don't work at a firm right now, so I feel even more so that I can be myself. And I don't know, I feel like I am completely professional with everything that I do, but I do like let people peek behind the curtain a little bit. And I think that makes me me, and it makes me unique. And I am okay with that, So I think that's part of why people like to follow the blog. And I don't know how many Lex blog blogs they have that are like this, probably not many, but it's not like I'm going to post like my top 5 cooking tips. It's still going to be either motivational, have something to do with marketing, but there will be probably something in there about, an element of me, and take it or leave it, right? You can read it or not.
Yeah.
I wish more.
Although your Girl Scout cooking tip, your Girl Scout cookie Girl Scout cooking tips are great in the videos. I couldn't even say it.
That more lawyers were more genuine and real. They would be remembered in a crowded marketplace. Again, right. I'm not saying you should do your top 5 Girl Scout cookie tips, but just being a little bit different than just standing out from the crowd and finding a way to just be unique is a good thing while still being incredibly professional.
Yeah. But so with your consulting hat on, how do you translate that to the advice that you give a legal professional or a professional in any other field about blogging? I mean, if I'm writing, if I'm a lawyer at a mid-sized firm writing an intellectual property blog, how much should I be writing about my personal life or my views on politics or something like that? Where do I draw that line?
Okay, so you should never, ever write about politics anywhere, ever, especially on social. I was just talking about this with a firm. Anything can be screenshotted, very bad. You never know on which side of somebody falls, just better not to talk about politics. So I actually work for a few intellectual property boutique firms, and one of the things we talk about is, so I have a client who has a son with autism, and he volunteers quite a bit with autistic organizations, right? So his son is brilliant. So we talk about different ways that some of the things that he's writing about, in some organizations he can get involved with, can be mixed in with some of the things that he's writing, right? So like he'll talk about something like he was inspired by his son and his son's classmates or in the camp, and they were doing this math project and it got him thinking about X. So that's a subtle way to work in something about your personal life without getting too, I guess, personal. So that's a way I would say to do it. Or, I'm at my house in the mountains and blah, blah, blah. It's just like setting the stage a little bit with the way that you write, instead of like, on January 12th, the USPTO released guidance on blah, blah, blah. I just wish that there was some more color in the ways that things were written. Maybe even just starting something off saying, I'm sitting here in my, home in the Berkshires, and, I started thinking about blank. I'd have to think about it, but Bob, I know that it can be done and it can still be professional.
Yeah, well, you're preaching to the choir there. I mean, I fully agree with you. I mean, put some personality into your writing, make it interesting. You don't have to write like a lawyer just because you are a lawyer. It's not on a blog anyway.
Please don't use defined terms ever. Please don't put things in
footnotes.
All of that. I had a client say to me, "We just want you to post this on social media. We don't want you to edit. We like double spaces between sentences. We might even use 3. We don't want you to remove any of our quotation marks or also our footnotes and all this stuff." And I was like, okay. And they're like, "You're not to edit anything." Okay, I guess. But, if you really want to tap into my expertise, you'll let me edit it.
Yeah. So let me maybe put you on the spot a little bit, because you're talking about the fact that you should let some of your personality come through in your posts, let some of who you are come through in your posts. But you also offer, as a service, writing blog posts for other professionals, right? And you do write blog posts for other professionals. So how do you square that idea of having a blog be a reflection of who you are and then having somebody else write the post?
Well, I mean, you get to know the person, right? So obviously the IP lawyer with whom I work, I've spent lots of time with him and I know him as a person. I've spent hours with him. Every post and behind every post, there's a person, and talking to them about their business goals, talking to them about what they want to be doing, who they are. Before I start writing posts, I also like to do other things with them, like write their bio and redo their LinkedIn profile. And that's a great way to get to know somebody. So I think you can only really write for someone when you understand their language and understand who they are as a person. So I think you absolutely can do it, but you need some background info. Like I couldn't write a post for you right away. And I also would do my background research. I would read everything I could about you. I would read everything that you wrote. But if you were a lawyer who wrote typical blog posts for a typical law firm, I probably wouldn't be able to find out much more about you. Like I'd have to get to know you. Yeah. And that's the key. You know, you just can't hire somebody and say, write for me. You need to really get to know that person in some way to just uncover those nuggets, you know, even like finding out like something about them from law school, or, you know, something about their form. You know, a lot of IP lawyers, for example, had other careers, right? Like they were chemists or whatever it is. Like those can be worked into somehow a blog post to just make it memorable. And that's all I'm saying, because it's a crowded market and you want to be remembered.
Yeah, well, that's a good approach. I mean, there are also lawyers out there who are hiring people to write their blog posts. I'm not even sure the lawyers know somebody's writing blog posts for them. And so at some firms, I think that the marketing department has brought somebody in, and you sometimes wonder whether the lawyers are even reviewing some of these things you see up there.
Yeah, or they're just regurgitations of the law, and they're, you know, there's no insight. And I think that's one of the big mistakes I see a lot of people make. Like, I have no problem going back to a lawyer and say, listen, this is a great recap of what happened, but what do you think it means? You know, answer that question. And then that first paragraph has to be very powerful. And that last paragraph must say, what does this mean for your clients? What are the challenges going ahead? And that's really it. And I say short is better, because so many people feel very, I guess, you know, overwhelmed by the idea of writing a blog post. You know, this isn't the Great Recession when we were writing 2,000 word articles about Dodd-Frank and related issues in the aftermath. This is now a time when everyone, irrespective of their age, is on their mobile and they want short content, digestible content. And the other thing I will say, and I don't know if you guys have seen this too, is I like content that is broken down with subheaders, you know, like, so that short paragraph really lets me know where I'm going so I can skim, because most people skim. So that's the other thing I do a lot, are bulleted lists or numbered lists, those sorts of things. And when I tell lawyers that, I think they feel a little bit like that seems more achievable than writing like a book, you know, about something. So I think
it's writing visually. It's writing visually in a way. It's giving the reader visual cues as to how to move around a piece.
Yeah, and I always do that. And I always have in my post like 5 simple things or things you need to know about, you know, just trying to make it as easy as possible for someone to find that one thing that they can resonate with as they read it.
Yeah, that's good advice. What about writing during a pandemic? How has what we're going through changed what our approach should be, not just to blogging, but maybe to social media more broadly even?
Yeah, I mean, so many things. You know, at the height of the pandemic, I actually took a look to see how many alerts were coming out of firms per day. And there were some firms that were pushing out like 6 alerts on COVID-related topics. And they were doing them individually, which was a huge mistake. And Bob, they were using the COVID cell structure. And there were not that many stock images, right?
Guilty.
So, yes. Okay. So most firms were using the same image. I pulled 3, it was Sullivan and Cromwell, MoFo, and one other firm in the same day it was in black and red, which is like the worst thing you can have, because it looks like death, right? It was like the red cell structure with the spikes coming out of it. And it was like all over. And I was like, okay, this is alarmist. This is not what a lawyer should be conveying, right? I want to think of my lawyer as the calm in the storm, someone who's going to help me navigate thorny waters and get me to a better place. Okay. So one thing I was recommending to firms is to bucket all of your content into one post with separate links. So, you know, the firm published, you know, alerts on COVID-related topics, labor and employment, you know, litigation, corporate, whatever it was, and then have one post and then do a visual that encompassed that. Because I felt like it was content saturation and overload, and people were like, you know, and then there was like on every law firm website, I counted them. I think there were 32 COVID-19 resource centers. exactly named like that. Okay. On law firm, big law firms, small law firm, mid-sized firms, and accounting firms. And I was like, okay, you guys, like, this isn't going to help your SEO.
Right. They all had the same thing.
Yeah. And so the other thing I was, and then not only were these alerts being posted to social, but they were being emailed out. And I was hoping that they were segmenting their list, because if they're blanketing everyone with these alerts, people were like, oh gosh, this is a lot of stuff, right? So I think there was alarmist culture going on, and I think the firms were nervous and lawyers were nervous. So they were producing content because they were feeling like, I got to do something. I don't know what's happening, but let me do something. I'm going to write, right? That's what we do. We do something. I think that's calmed down, Bob, but I do think that right now, the forward-looking posts are what's most helpful, right? What is this world going to look like? Who the heck knows? But let's talk about, like in litigation, I could think of 10 topics in bankruptcy. CARES Act fraud, mortgage-related fraud is going to be a huge issue. Bankruptcies, obviously, labor and employment issues related to working from home, a whole host of issues. So, there's a plethora of things one could write about. So thinking of the future and how do you help your clients navigate this going forward, and what do you bring to the table by extension, is where you should be right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then don't be tone deaf. Obviously don't be tone deaf. Put your clients first and be helpful with everything that you write, and, really get at your clients' pain points. What are they saying to you? What questions keep coming up? Keep a list of those. What are they asking you? And what are they worried about? That's what you should be writing about.
Yeah. I haven't seen too much of a problem with firms being tone deaf during this, but what I have seen is, especially in the early days of the pandemic, and I think I saw you mention something about this on your blog, is the problem of firms that have kind of auto or scheduled posts on social media, that things go up that have no relation to the world at that moment. And they look tone deaf. They might not have been when they were written or when they were scheduled, but at the point that they go up, they look tone deaf.
I did actually. So I saw those. I actually did see some tone deaf posts, like, winning certain awards at the height of things when, for example, COVID wasn't as big in certain areas, but like in New York, it was an absolute disaster. It wasn't appropriate to post that your firm had won X awards or you had this many rising stars. That to me seemed like it could wait. Or, I saw a couple big firms post big deals that they had, we just closed this major merger, X millions of dollars. That could have waited, in my opinion, until the curve had flattened. And I'm talking about late March and April. It wasn't appropriate, in my opinion, to do those posts. Yeah.
You're judging by how often you write about LinkedIn. I take it you're a big LinkedIn person. How do you, what's your advice to a professional about how to kind of create the connection between their blog and LinkedIn, and how to balance, again, what they're doing on LinkedIn, what they're doing on their blog?
Yeah, I struggled with this for a little while myself. Everybody who is on LinkedIn, which should be everybody, should be promoting their blog posts on LinkedIn, right? So, a lot of us don't have as many blog followers as we do LinkedIn connections. So what do? You take your blog post, you write a short little synopsis, and you post it on LinkedIn. That's what you do. And you find the right hashtags. The most important thing you can do, obviously this has been happening on Twitter for years, but hashtags are so important on LinkedIn to help your content get discovered. What you do is to find the right hashtags. LinkedIn sometimes will suggest hashtags. They aren't always the right ones. You have to use, you got to use the search bar and search for hashtags. And hashtags with too many followers are bad, and too few followers are bad too. And the hashtag shouldn't just be based on the content. You need to look at the followers. So for example, like I wrote a post on LinkedIn. I'll always use hashtag LinkedIn, but then I'll use a few others like LinkedIn tips, LinkedIn expert, LinkedIn learning. Those have a good number of followers. I won't I won't use like other ones like that I make up. You can't just make them up in a vacuum. You actually have to research them. So it's important. And LinkedIn just changed its algorithm. So it used to penalize you for using more than 5. And now actually you should use more than 5. So between 5 and 10 and put them at the end. The other thing I will say when it comes to LinkedIn is the more connections you have, the more people will see your posts. Okay. So everyone wants to get to that coveted 501 connections. When you're under 500, it will put the number of actual connections you have. When you're over 500, it says 500 plus.
Right.
I know everybody who's listening here and every business professional knows more than 500 people on LinkedIn. Bob, since the pandemic, the number of people on LinkedIn has gone up over 100 million people. So we're now at 710 million people around the globe. If you guys don't know 501 people, I don't know what to say. So the more connections you have, the better your chances are that people will see it, because then the second degree connections and the third degree connections see it. My final thing on LinkedIn, post your blog posts to groups. So lawyers, I know, have been getting business through LinkedIn groups, and I actually have gotten a new client through LinkedIn groups. So this is where you post a blog post in one of the groups. To find the right groups, again, it's just searching, but you can really make a difference there. Groups have exploded again since COVID because people are wanting to network and meet other individuals who are business professionals.
Yeah. In a related question, I'm a mid-sized law firm that's been stuck in the 1960s or something. I have no social media strategy. I have no content strategy. I hire you. You come in. When do you start talking about a blog as part of that strategy? I mean, where are you looking first, and where does blogging fit within your priorities for developing a social media strategy?
So it's pretty high up there, but I would first need to find out the practice focuses, right? Because you need to figure out which are the practices that are the most important, because I think those are the ones where you'd want to focus on blogging, and then which of the lawyers are actually going to be committed to do it. I have launched blogs, and then I have had commitments, and then people haven't written them. But content is important, and having a place to house the content is incredibly important. So blogs are incredibly important to firms, especially mid-sized and small firms that don't necessarily get into the press a lot and don't have the media mentions. This is owned media, the content you're creating yourself that you're getting out there. And the thing is, most blogs don't have a ton of followers or subscribers. It's up to you, the firm, and the lawyers to push out the blog out there and to get people to follow the blog with a combination of email and a combination of social. So I would say it would be within the first month that we would say, which are the practices that we think the lawyers are the most committed to a blog and where we really feel like we can make an impact. Obviously you want to look at the market, right? Is there a saturation of blogs that are exactly the same? And if so, what can we do that's a little different? Like, for example, in intellectual property, can we do something with like a tech spin or entrepreneurs? Or if maybe we're a New England firm, can we do a New England intellectual property blog? Something like that. Find a differentiator. We need to do our research first, and then we should start writing and get people on board, get people excited. The associates can be such great ambassadors for this in terms of like having them partner up with a senior lawyer and having them get bylines, that sort of thing. But I think this happens very early on, and you want a repository and a place to really house all of your content like this.
Yeah. I've been asking you all the questions, but what's your advice? What are you thinking about when you talk to a firm about blogs? What's top of mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, so top of mind to me is basically the stuff I just said, but like, where can you really make an impact? Yeah. What do your clients care about? I always ask people to like make me a list of what resonates the most with their clients and what would be different here. I need the commitment from them that they're going to write. I mean, like, I write more than most people, and I write fast. I mean, that's the difference. Like, people always
write
say,
a lot.
I do. People say, why do you have so many posts? I just write a lot and frequently, and it's easy for me. I don't expect that from anybody else. I think it is incredibly important for thought leadership to be out there. It helps with credentialing. It helps with brand building. It helps with relationships. It helps with business development. I mean, it helps with everything. I'll tell you, really quick story. One of my clients was asked to speak on a CLE program because he has a lot of client alerts. And I said to him, you should have a blog, because if you did, it would be so much easier for people to find all of this, archive all of this. And then, you could do a 5 takeaways from every blog of every CLE that you ever do. Like, it makes it easier to find you. So for those lawyers who are frustrated about not being in the press, who feel like all the big 10 top 20 firms are always out there, a blog is a way for you to carve a niche for yourself and for you to build your brand. And it will lead to new business, no doubt. So it's worked for me, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about how it's helped me. And I was doing this before I was even having my own business. I was doing this when I was in a house. So, and it's never too late to start. That's the beauty about this. So keep an archive of everything you've written. The other thing you can do is update old articles, which I do all the time, and it's a new piece of content. So think about doing that. Listen, we are not going to be networking in person anytime soon. We're not going to be doing any of the things we were doing. We've got to rely on thought leadership more than we've ever had to before. If you were ever thinking about writing, now is the time. And if you're nervous about doing it on your own, get a buddy, get a colleague, get a client, get an associate to help you do it, but do it. It's worth it.
Yeah. And like you say, that's online is where everybody is right now. So if you want to be where the clients are, that's where they are. Well, Stefanie, it's been a real pleasure to get this chance to talk to you about blogging and social media and other stuff, and to meet Lucy as well. Was it Lucy? Did I get the name right?
Yes.
Yeah, Lucy
she's
as well.
been sleeping the whole time, so
That's
she's
amazing.
mad at me again. But look, there she is. She's so mad.
Take her out for a walk, make her happy.
Thanks for having me. She's not happy right now. I'm gonna put that. Okay.
So
if anyone has any tips on housebreaking, please send me a note on social media, because this one not going well.
We'll be watching for your blog post on housebreaking. So we've been talking with Stefanie Marrone, a publisher of The Social Media Butterfly, and I love the name. I love the blog.
Thank Kevin.
Thank God. Yes. And we will be back next week, as I said, with Jeff Nowak, who writes the FMLA Insights blog. You can find all of these at youtube.com/LexBlog. That's it for this week. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. This is Bob Ambrogi, and this has been This Week in Legal Blogging.